rally last night as he became the third president ever to be impeached. And he reserved his most startling comments for Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, the widow of the late Congressman John Dingell of Michigan.
So she calls me up like 8 months ago. Her husband was there a long time. But I didn't give him the B treatment. I didn't give him the C or the D. I could have. She calls me up. It's the nicest thing that's ever happened. Thank you so much. John would be so thrilled. He's looking down. He'd be so thrilled. I said, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Maybe he's looking up. I don't know.
Okay, we're back with Caitlin Collins and Joe Lockhart. I mean, what can you say about the president? I mean, Debbie Dingell is still grieving.
Do we have her statement?
I'm sure we do. She says, Mr. President, let's set politics aside. My husband earned all his accolades after a lifetime of service. I'm preparing for the first holiday season without the man I love. You brought me down in a way you can never imagine, and your hurtful words just made my healing much harder. I think, Joe, there's another point that we need to make. None of that was true, what he said. And, you know, one of our researchers who has to count the president's lies says that one tell is when the president uses the term sir in reference to himself. Yeah. He did that last night. She didn't call him and say that. He called her after her husband died. Congress decided to lower the flags. That wasn't true, what he said.
Well, there's just so many levels of it. One of it is how he looks at politics as transactional, like he gave her something, and then he was shocked that she didn't return the honors on her husband with a vote with him on impeachment. Shocked. Secondly, it shows how little he knows about Michigan politics. The voters that got him Michigan in 2016 are John Dingell Democrats. John Dingell was a hero of the NRA, who is a moderate Democrat, a working class Democrat. And then the third is, you know, it's just from an optics point of view, Democrats spent 7 hours on the floor yesterday saying we have to resist an authoritarian president. And Donald Trump went out and gave a Fidel Castro speech last night. The longest speech of his presidency, rambling, insulting, degrading. It's just wrong on so many levels.
Look, I actually don't think this is about politics or honesty. I think it's about humanity. I don't think there is anything smaller that you can do than criticizing or attacking someone who has died. And the president does it all the time. Does it with John McCain. He now does it with John Dingell. It is cowardly. You attack someone who's dead because they can't fight back. And we've seen this from the president again and again. And Caitlin, the response from the crowd last night was interesting. Yes, there were cheers, and we saw it too. There were cheers, but there were also groans, and there was clear discomfort in that clearly awful moment.
Yeah, there were actually a ton of groans. If you watched other clips of the feed, you really saw people in the crowd grimacing. And of course, there were some people cheering. This is an arena full of the president's supporters. You can't forget that. But it was really notable to see those members of the crowd, those of the audience who were groaning, because I've been to a lot of the president's rallies. You don't often see a reaction like that. But the president making this comment really just shows how personally he took these votes yesterday, these votes of impeachment, where he was lashing out, going as far as to criticize these Democrats out by name, but of course the most personal with Debbie Dingell. And what's notable is as you were watching those arguments yesterday from Democrats and Republicans, very clearly divided, what you saw a lot of the Democrats trying to make is this argument about how the Republicans have really struggled with getting behind the president when he makes comments like what he made last night. That has been what you've heard privately from these lawmakers time and time again since Donald Trump has been in office. They like what he does. They don't like what he says, and especially comments like that. But I do want to read, I was reading New York Magazine this morning and an interview that Debbie Dingell gave with Olivia Nuzzi, where earlier this year she'd been on a campaign stop with Joe Biden. She was talking about her husband, and she said, quote, I miss John every day, and I have really hard days, and you keep yourself so busy that you can't feel. You just keep going so you don't have time to think or feel, and you take that energy of missing somebody as much as I miss my husband, and you take that and you put it into a passion of helping other people. She says, I'm raw, I'm sad, but I'm not going to sit at home and feel sorry for myself. And like you were saying about humanity, it really just shows you this was her longtime husband. Beyond the politics of whether it was wise for the president to make a comment like this while he's in the center of Michigan, of course, is something else. But to see just what she has to say about her husband who died less than a year ago.
And Caitlin, this is why it's so important for us to have you on the ground there and for us to, have our reporters on the ground, because to know that there were groans in the crowd, as you say, how many people supported John Dingell, because all we see in that little capture of the people behind the president is gleeful clapping and laughing at his jokes. So it is really helpful to know that the crowd had a mixed reaction.
I want to remind people why he was doing this and behaving this way. It's because of this. It's because the president was impeached.
You're serving as closed caption this morning, which is helpful.
Just to underline Caitlin's point, I guarantee there'll be Republicans today that will question Dingell, and she's being disingenuous. Debbie Dingell's been my friend for 25 years. I've spent some time with her since her husband died. This woman is going through a very hard time. Her husband was her partner for decades, her political partner, the love of her life. And it's, I imagine Trump will make it worse today. But I think no one should doubt her sincerity.
Joe, Caitlin, thank you both very much. And coming up in our next hour, we will speak live with Congresswoman Debbie Dingell to get her thoughts on all of this.